too. He was where Doug is. Okay. All right, with that, I will call this meeting to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Council members Walsh. Here. Bean. Here. Edberg.
Here.
Engstrand.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Thank you. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is approval of the minutes of the July 27th, 2021 meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Yes.
So while I wasn't at the meeting, I did notice that after my name it says Bean was an excused. I'm afraid that could be misinterpreted as unexcused, or maybe it should say an excused absence or something.
Good point. We can correct that. Taken care of already.
All right.
See? Thank you.
Excused what?
Well, with that, could I have a motion to approve?
Second.
You made the motion.
Well, I didn't know if I could make the motion because I wasn't at the meeting.
I'm sorry. You're right. You can't. Thank you.
Yeah.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Any deletions or additions to the agenda?
Move to
Edberg.
Madam Mayor, with regard to the consent agenda, I would request that we would remove item 10E and place it for specific action. If we're going to handle a couple million of federal dollars, that's deserving of something other than a consent agenda.
The money? We're not really. Are we handling it? Okay. No, that's fine. That's fair. We will put that under new business 9D.
Thank you.
Okay.
Move approval of the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, Mr. Juba, you were going to talk about our...
Well, I was just going to, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. I was just going to mention we're still dealing with a little bit of technical difficulties here, so the screens might look a little bit different as we go through the meeting tonight, but everything's working on the broadcast side, so no concerns there. But just between slideshows and things, you might see things that look a little bit different. Just be assured that the broadcast is just fine.
Okay, good. So moving on to visitors and presentations, it's my pleasure to introduce Tara Jevan Singh, the Executive Director and President of Northeast Youth and Family Services. Tara?
Thank you. So lovely to be here tonight. I just wanted to thank the City of White Bear Lake and all of the support that Northeast Youth and Family Services has continued to receive year after year. Specifically, Northeast Youth and Family Services is a community-based, trauma-informed, nonprofit mental health and human services agency. We serve every age and stage of life in our many different programs, but thanks to the partnership with 15 different municipalities, 3 different school districts, and 5 local police departments, we are able to support low-income and underinsured families, youth, and individuals. We are 45 years, celebrating 45 years this year, providing services throughout suburban Ramsey County. Our mission is transforming lives today, creating a better tomorrow for youth, adults, families, and our community. We have a number of different kinds of programs that we present. 3 of them are in our mental health department. We have 2 outpatient mental health clinics, one in White Bear Lake, thanks to a great arrangement that we have with the city in one of your buildings. It's a beautiful clinic just off of Highway 96. We also have our home base in Shoreview, just south of the YMCA on Lexington Avenue. We introduced telehealth services this year as well, so when folks had to stay safely in home, we were able to continue service even if we weren't in person. We also have school-based mental health services that are embedded within 3 different school districts in the area: Roseville, Mounds View, and the White Bear Lake area schools. So we service 17 different school buildings throughout the area. The real benefit of being able to be embedded within the schools is we meet kids right where they are at. They are referred by the individuals, the teachers, the counselors, the peers who know them best. They're able to reduce barriers such as transportation, time, and cost. We also have our NETS day treatment. This is intensive day treatment for youth in middle school and high school. We did have to make some arrangements in our day treatment. It is a group milieu kind of therapy, and in order to make that safe, we had a brief pause and regrouped, and then we're able to recreate a smaller pod-like environment with a smaller census that was able to continue this important treatment throughout COVID in a safe way. We were able to get some technology investments, so we were able to have hybrid interaction. So if kids had to quarantine at home because of a family member's exposure or their own, they were able to continue with their therapy, which is really important for the continuity of care and for their progress. We also have our community services. Our youth diversion program has been a part of the community for quite some time. Our senior chore program probably had a great alteration in that we were no longer able to go inside of older adults' homes. So we were not doing our homemaking services, but we did continue to do our lawn and snow removal services, and then added an additional service to reduce isolation and to help our older adults connect to resources in the community through our telephone reassurance calls. One of the things that we are hoping to do is to, and I'll talk about this later, some exploring expansion of our older adult services. We also have the second year of a new program. It is our Community Advocate Program, and this is part of the growing efforts of cities to be able to to incorporate nonprofit partners and the community at large in the co-creation of public safety. So recognizing that there are interactions with law enforcement, that the police themselves are recognizing that if we're going to be seeing this individual again, really the next person who interacts with them should be somebody who can provide health, human service, mental health, chemical dependency, other kinds of connections to services, so that they're really getting the care and support that they need, rather than just another intervention from somebody who's damping down a situation. And that's been a really successful program. Just a little overview. Like I said, we are White Bear Lake. The city of White Bear Lake is one of 15 municipalities. I've got about 18 months worth of data I wanted to show you. So usually we do these presentations at the beginning of the year. So I want to give you a recap on 2020. At the time, the city contract for services for that year would have been $43,451. And we look at the actual services that community members participated in throughout all of the programs that I just talked about. In 2020, the cost of those services would have been $212,000, $147,000. So $212,147. So as you can see, the investment from the city of White Bear Lake really does open the doors for community members to be able to access quality services that are provided right in their neighborhood. The kinds of services that were used in our mental health clinics, we had 108 different individuals who were able to receive services. And we like to think that the impact of any of the services rendered is far-reaching beyond the particular individual who walks through our door. It certainly impacts their family, it impacts their employer, it impacts their school, their neighbors, and anybody else who's responsible for caring or is supported by that individual. In our diversion services, we had 36 different clients, plus their caregivers who went through our programs. And additionally, they were able to provide 334 hours of community service as a way of retribution and service back to community. In our senior chore program, we had 16 seniors that were assisted in the year of 2020, and 3 of the youth that were working in the program also came from our area. Since it's summertime and we're already 6 months into 2021, I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update here. Our city contract for services for 2021 looks a little bigger here because now we have the community advocate added into this particular dollar figure. So you see that, and already the the cost of services that have already been expended by our community is exceeding what we've invested in from the city. I will say that that number may look a little lower than it would have been halfway through 2020 because COVID has kept people home. So numbers are a little bit down throughout all of our programs. As you can imagine, people aren't seeing the same referral systems that they would if they were traditionally at work or school every day. And when we look at who is using our services this first 6 months, again, 67 participants have already been able to be supported by our mental health services. 9 youth and their caregivers have been able to go through our diversion program. 10 seniors are currently being served by our senior chore program. And the community advocate has been able to work with 7 different individuals in the community who are being directed to services that will reduce their interaction with law enforcement. I wanted to then also be able to thank the City of White Bear Lake for some additional programs that we partnered with, and I wanted to highlight how that helped Northeast Youth and Family Services. We were able to receive a $10,000 CARES Act grant through the city, and where we were able to apply that, which was extremely important for us at Northeast Youth and Family Services, was for the immediate training and program modifications that intensive personnel investment that we had to do right away so that we were able to transition from traditional in-person care to telehealth, safe, HIPAA-compliant telehealth services within 10 days. So you can imagine we had to very quickly get everybody up to speed that had some training and personnel costs. So we are very appreciative that the city was able to help us that. And it also was able to allow us in that first year of care to provide over 5,500 telehealth sessions. So you can see this was a really wonderful investment in us being able to have a continuity of care, even though it was a very difficult year. In addition, so I know that cities never compete with each other, but I will say that the City of White Bear Lake went above and beyond its neighbors, and beyond the CARES Act dollars was able to also provide some additional COVID-related funds to support extra kinds of programs, recognizing that this was probably a very unique situation, straining mental health and wellness for people who maybe have never considered issues around mental health before. And so we were able to partner with Regrow White Bear Lake to host a number of community workshops and complete and build our online resource library. And these workshops, I want to say, involved youth, it involved our schools, it involved parents, it involved our business community. So it was all different strata of how are we handling all of the strains and stresses that have been put on us in this last COVID year. We were able to provide free listening sessions for individuals, and I can say anecdotally that I know of a handful of families that were able to take advantage of the free listening sessions and then were able to convert them into ongoing care, meaning they didn't know if what they were experiencing as a family was something that they just needed to have a conversation around strategies, or if there was something underlying that needed to be addressed in a more systemic way. And so I know that this was a great way to open the door for people to walk through without a big commitment. They didn't need a diagnostic assessment. They need to check with their insurance. They could call up and talk to a mental health professional right away. That was a really big help to the community. We also were able to help with some of the technology investments needed. Our website before didn't have the same interactive capacities that some of the shiny new websites do. Well, they do now, and a lot of that was thanks to some of the technology supports. And when I say the bells and whistles, I don't just mean that it looks a little fancier and it's a little slicker. What I mean is it has online resources, so when that parent finally has a quiet moment alone to realize this might be the time for me to reach out for help, they were more easily be able to find us online and to see the resources they need. They were able to contact us and get help in a quicker way because we were able to make our website a little bit more interactive. It also helped us to increase some of the technological investments we needed so that we could continue to engage folks online, meaning to invest in things like DocuSign and our platforms to have HIPAA-compliant telehealth and different ways of sharing information with our referral partners. All of those were little investments that needed to be made very quickly. These kind of supports were really important to make that happen. We were also able to train staff to meet these evolving needs and continue to train and engage with our other referral partners. So I know that this pandemic continues. I know that there are some additional dollar supports that are coming along the way. If in any of that, if there's any part of those services or those funds that you think we can be in partnership with, we'd be more than happy to. We had such a successful go of it this first time. We'd love to continue that conversation. I also want to say that we have a very thrilling partnership with the City of White Bear Lake. Northeast Youth and Family Services is one of many local organizations, including the City of White Bear Lake, that has been engaged with the Many Faces of White Bear Lake collaboration. This is one of the events that are coming up, so I wanted to promote that. But just to say how wonderful it is to be part of a group that includes things like the Chamber and the Rotary and the YMCA and the Center for the Arts and Lakeshore Players and the White Bear Lake Historical Society, and to know that we're in good standing with these pillars of the community and wanting to create a more welcoming and inclusive place. So it's very exciting to be able to be in that partnership with the city. And future plans. We do have better days ahead. We know that as the world gets back and cranking back into normalcy again, we do anticipate a greater return to in-person mental health counseling. I will let you know that as of July 1st of last calendar year, we did create safe rooms for us to have on-site mental health care, and we have recently been able to have our therapists receive clients back in their more intimate client settings. So we are seeing people face-to-face, but we will continue to provide telehealth as long as that is a waiver and insurance option, which is something that we are hoping will continue. We are looking to grow our Community Connections program. This is an extension of our youth diversion program. It is a youth development, life skills, values-based way of connecting youth back into community and make sure they have strong connections to positive mentors. This was put on pause. As you can imagine, many of those community locations had restricted access, and we're very excited. We know that there will be an even greater need for kids who aren't typically or organically getting those natural positive connections into their life to have a step into that. So we're hoping to reopen that Community Connections program with strength. We also are, as I mentioned, expanding our senior services. A couple of different things. So prior to my role at Northeast Youth and Family Services, I had the privilege of working with the White Bear Lake area schools as their adult programs coordinator, which primarily engaged with their senior services. And in that time there, we really struggled with how do we connect older adults to all of the wonderful resources that are available in our community? How do we advocate when there are gaps in those services? And how do we help families help their loved ones to stay independent and living in community as long as they can? Luckily, we are looking at trying to fill some existing gaps in that service in the Northeast Metro, as well as trying to reduce isolation and expanding to mental health and wellness for older adults. The last thing I'll just say is we are expanding our online presence, again, trying to grow those resources, and then trying to make sure that all of the services that we provide are culturally responsive in our care. One of the things that people can do right now is we are engaging with the Charities Review Council's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Toolkit. It's a survey assessment to make sure that we have a fresh look at our organization and how we're engaging with stakeholders. So if anybody would want to participate in that, that would be constructive feedback for us as we go forward and wanting to make sure that we, too, are making sure we're being as welcoming and inclusive in the care that we provide. And then lastly, I'll just open it up for questions and make sure that everybody has our contact information, mostly for anybody who is at home, who knows of anybody in their family who may be thinking, is this time for me to reach out and ask for care? If you're even asking that question, the time was yesterday, so today's the day to actually pick up the phone. And we are happy to get you connected to whatever service would be appropriate to help.
Thank you. Well, this, as you know, this, for White Bear Lake, this has been a very important service for many, many years, since we had our own community counseling center here. So we're just thrilled that this partnership is continuing. But Council, do any of you have any questions? And Councilman Walsh serves on their board, so he is our representative. So if anybody's got questions, comments, now would be your opportunity.
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Bean.
No questions, but just a kudos for all the work that you do and the things that you do for the families that need assistance and the older folks that need some help and everything. I think it's fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, I'm the one who gets to come out to these kind of events, but really I will take that back for the team back home, because they're the ones who are really face-to-face making sure families are getting that care. So thank you. I'll make sure that they know that.
Councilmember Walsh.
Well, just a quick question for the presentation. The free listening sessions, that was sort of a COVID thing we did, but with that CARES Act money. Is that something to do again? I mean, did it generate leads? I mean, if you look from a business perspective, first appointment free, but that's not how we marketed it. But
Yeah.
well, look, I'm getting a scowl down there.
Actually don't want to encourage the need for a lot more service, but it's out there.
Right. But you said it did drive some folks to connect, and there was a connection we wanted to facilitate. It's a super easy way to connect. It's just a listening session. You don't have to go through insurance. You don't have to do anything. Just we'll listen and go from there.
So, Bill, I think what you're talking about is those elusive non-billable services, the ancillary services, all these terms that come up in our insurance-based world, the things that actually connect people into a program. So, yes, I would say that any time that we can find outside grant or support money to allow people to access services where they don't have to commit, especially when it comes to education and awareness, and then again allowing that first conversation to happen, I think are always ways to let people walk through that door and to get connected. It's also a wonderful way to make sure if somebody walks in and you say, you know what, this kind of sounds like pretty normal teenage stuff. I think you can sleep well and feel as if you've had that affirmation too. So it can go both ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Please.
Madam Mayor, Tara, just on behalf of the staff, thank you so much. It's a great partnership, particularly with police and fire and the community advocate program, but also with Ann's department and community development, with code enforcement. We always know you guys are there, and you always come through. It's just a great partnership, but a great resource. You guys do a great job.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Well, I guess you're sprung for the night.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to land use, 6A, consent.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6B, non-consent. Ms. Kane.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the council, I did share with you at the dais, draw your attention to a site plan. This is an aerial shot of the property located at 1601 9th Street, Cherlin Products, which, it looks like the PowerPoint is working. Thank you, Kara. Wow.
There we
okay.
go.
Really schmazzy now. Okay, so this property is 1601 9th Street. As you can see in the next shot, the property contains a 70,000 square foot office and manufacturing facility, along with a warehouse on a 9-acre site. It is zoned I-2 general industry, and the applicant is looking to expand its warehousing capacities and opportunities to establish a relationship with U-Haul truck rental service, but really is focused on establishing a relationship with U-Boxes, which is a new arm of U-Haul to maximize storage capacity within the existing warehouse. And the outdoor storage of the trucks does require a conditional use permit, and therefore did hold a public hearing before the Planning Commission last month with a number of neighbors from the residential properties immediately south of 9th Street, which is a somewhat unique situation in that one of our more heavy industrial districts is located across the street from some single-family detached townhomes. I believe most of the questions and concerns of the neighbors were addressed in that the focus is really on the interior storage of the U-boxes, and that the company can really control the dispatch and receipt of the U-Haul trucks, limited to Monday through Friday hours. There was concern that there would be peak demands on weekends as spring or fall seasons approach and more people are moving. Mr. Turland was at the public hearing and was able to address a lot of those concerns, and that they're not looking to be open on the weekends. They just want it to be a Monday through Friday, I believe 5 a.m. through 4 p.m. Business hours where those rental trucks might be available, and that they would address relocation of any trucks that were parked in up closer to 9th Street in view of the adjoining residential properties. We can just scan through the rest of these aerials. You can see here I pointed out with the red arrow the proposed location of the trucks, which will be screened from the adjoining residential properties by the accessory units or storage facilities that are on the property, and that seemed to address many of the concerns that the neighbors brought up. Let's see. Planning Commission did receive comments from the neighbors, but believed that those were addressed and did forward a unanimous recommendation for approval for the council's consideration this evening. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have, and I don't know if the applicant was unable to make it this evening, but I know he travels quite a bit for work. So,
okay, Council, any questions for Ms. Kane? Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Kane, is there any restrictions on the current business, what they do today, on any weekend operational issues? And this property's been there for quite some time.
There before the houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just.
Yeah,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Jones, correct. The property has been operating, I believe it was a prom dress facility before it became a...
That's where I got my dress.
That would have been in the early 70s, Councilmember Jones. But yeah, it's been operating as a HVAC manufacturing and distribution facility.
There's no restrictions on the zoning of any operational...
The
use
business
that they
owner
have.
has chosen to put his own restrictions on it, and that he does not really want to be in the truck rental business. It's really the
box
focus
thing.
is on the
Are they U-boxes.
like
the pods?
Yeah.
Is that what it's like?
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Kane.
Anyone else? Well, if not, because this is a land use issue, I will open it up to the public. If there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak, now would be your opportunity. Well, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the council for deliberation. Council.
Move to approve, Madam Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to 8 ordinances. Second reading of a city-initiated text amendment to zoning code 1303.160 to allow interim use permits in the B5 zoning district.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This is a proposed text amendment initiated by the city in response to a variance request that was brought forward for a property on Banning Avenue within the downtown district. There was a desire among the council to accommodate the request, but not to allow it to persist or extend for a lengthy period of time. I'm sorry, are we on the second reading?
You're on the level up one.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
that's okay.
First reading.
No, we're on the second reading, but it's showing
You're right, the
it's,
slides
Oh, okay,
Yes,
okay, thank you.
it's showing the
I
other one.
apologize, I may have gotten it wrong in the PowerPoint.
No, That's
I was
okay.
like, so we are here tonight discussing the second reading on the interim use permits within the B5 business district. The council will recall this came as a result of a variance request for relief from the 30% restriction on lineal footage or ground floor square footage. I believe at the first reading there was concern expressed that there was not a time restriction within the text itself. City attorney has addressed that within subsection 6 of the proposed draft text amendment, which limits it to specifically a 2-year time frame. And so with that, staff hopes that addresses the concern of the council and is again forwarding the Planning Commission's recommendation for adoption of the proposed text amendment as presented. And again, I just want to remind the council that we have 2 action items tonight, both the adoption of the resolution or the ordinance as well as the summary resolution for publication.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Ms. Kane? Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the work of the city attorney in drafting the time limitation. It complies with all of the concerns that I had. Thank you. My only question is, it is retroactive in the sense that the action that we took a couple of months ago is governed by this text amendment. Is that correct?
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council Member, yeah, the interim use permit hasn't been issued, right, because it didn't exist in the code. And so now that it does, it'll be pursuant to this limitation.
Very cool. Thank you.
Total of 2 years.
Anybody else? Councilmember Jones.
So my only question really to Ms. Kane, or really actually to the council, I mean, so, all right, 2 years goes by.
Then they come back and want to do it again.
Right. So, you know, and I don't know how we can address this, but they sat here and said, well, we are different. We are unique. We do this, this to bring footsteps into that. So that, is there a way?
It can't be extended or whatever?
No, I'm not asking for extension. I think the timeline is good, that they have to appear back in front of the council in 2 years. I think that's a very good thing. But it's what's the measurement? What to guide the next council? Is there anything that, you know, really, I mean, are they doing what they said they're doing, that we're saying that they can void this 30%?
I'll give you an answer from my perspective. It's a high bar because it's a deviation from what we think should be happening in downtown. So, for me, it would be extraordinary. That's where I stand today, is that this was a temporary thing because of how they all got themselves into that situation, which we can debate. But I guess I'm not looking for them to prove that they should stay forever. I think they should look at transitioning out, and then we go back to downtown being retail and driving traffic, and that's the code is smart, and we should keep to it.
But a different council could.
Right, different council. I mean, I support
control.
Councilmember Walsh and his sentiments on that too. I'm a big believer in what it is, and it's like, okay, is it a moving forward? So I'm just basically kind of saying, as a question to the owner, really, hey, this is temporary at this point.
Councilmember Edberg, you had another?
Yeah, so not just a way of thinking. As with all of our actions, we can't bind, we don't have the capacity of binding a future council. I think that becomes a part of our own internal conversations and the wisdom that we try and impart through conversation, work with staff on, what is our vision for the downtown area and why do we have the standards that we have, and a consistent conversation that reminds folks of why these things are there. I wanted to make clear, and I believe I did so in a previous meeting, to the owner and the tenants, that I was interested in facilitating a short-term solution in the middle of pandemic that did not penalize a business. And I am not interested, should I be sitting in this chair in 2 years, I'm not inclined to, perhaps with Mr. Walsh, to support any extension. So let there be a clear message that there's at least...
Well, I think you guys made that clear. We made it clear when they were here the last time. I think that was part of our discussion, that this was it.
Good.
Okay.
I was not here that meeting. Hard to get that from the meeting minutes.
Yeah, but it was discussed
All right, good.
quite well.
Thank you.
Well, since this is a second reading of an ordinance, once again, there's a public hearing involved. So if there's anybody who wishes to speak for or against the ordinance, now would be your time. And so come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Gretchen Peterson, and my address is 12442 Everton Circle North. I am the owner of the building, and I do hear you. Excuse me, Madam Mayor and council members. We understand this is a temporary thing, and our tenant does as well. Our intention is to not extend it. We realize that this is a flexible chance for us to, address what's been happening in the business world with the changes with COVID, and I just want to express my thanks and appreciation for allowing this temporary use permit to come into play. I think it's a great tool for the city, and just wanted to express my thanks and I just wanted to let you know that I'm here and I hear what you're saying.
Thank you. All right. She appears to be the only one, so I will close the public hearing, bring it back to all of us. Gentlemen.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to... I'm sorry, I always do that. Why do I always forget? Thank you.
I'll move approval of the
Summary resolution.
summary resolution for publication.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will never remember to do that. I will never.
Everybody was ready for this.
You know me too well now. You're going to miss me. No. So moving on to 8 should be 8B. Yeah. So first reading, rezoning of 2 parcels on Rolling View Drive. Ms. Kane, I will.
Mayor, members of the council, yes, this request is being brought to you. This is the first reading of an application submitted by purchasers of the former Rock Point Church parcel on County Road E in Rolling View. And the current property has 4 different parcels with 3 different zoning designations. And so part of their desire to acquire the campus from the church, for Level Up Academy is the purchaser of the property from Rock Point Church. And as part of that, they are looking to rezone 2 of the properties. They're along Rolling View. The northernmost is zoned B2, which is a limited business district, and the southern portion shown in orange is RB, a residential business transition district. So the applicants have submitted an application not only for a conditional use permit to expand the existing structure on the property, but to rezone these 2 parcels. And the Planning Commission continued the conditional use permit request simply to look at exterior building materials that are proposed and the design of the gymnasium, but did forward a recommendation on this one component, which is the rezoning, so that we could initiate this first reading this evening, allow the design details of the gymnasium to return to the public hearing before the Planning Commission later this month, and then the 2 will meet together for the second reading and consideration of the conditional use permit by the council at its meeting next month. So with that, I will just summarize that one neighbor did speak to the matter in support and suggested, actually, instead of rezoning it, I mean, they're proposing to rezone both parcels to residential, which allow for the school under both the comprehensive plan for 2040 as well as the zoning designation. And that neighbor actually wanted to retain the ability to potentially allow Level Up to sell off that residential parcel in the future should that investment or the desire to create more housing in the neighborhood present itself. So that was the only public input in the matter, and the Planning Commission did forward a unanimous recommendation for the rezoning request as presented. And again, this is simply the first reading, and we will publish for a second reading at the council's meeting next month.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions, suggestions? Councilmember Edberg.
Yeah, thank you. One of those little white squares north of here is the home that I grew up in, so I'm a little bit familiar with the area.
Well, good.
So, Ms. Kane, does the rezoning have any implications, or any of the other discussions have any implications for the playground equipment that has been located on that larger parcel? The school has been gracious, and the church has been gracious in making its facilities available to the neighborhood. It's one of the only park areas that we have in that particular part of the ward, and so there's been just a desire to maintain that. Is there any implications for this decision that might affect that aspect of public use, access, location of the playground, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. Great question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Edberg, I believe they received park or playground equipment funding through the city.
Yep.
And as a part of that agreement, that kind of joint grant programming, the school does agree to allow it to be accessible to the general public after school hours and on weekends. And so this rezoning request does not affect the location of the playground. I believe they are proposing to relocate it elsewhere on the larger parcel with the gymnasium expansion, but it would not be on either of these two parcels that are proposed for rezoning or potentially sale for residential development.
So residents can be reasonably assured that that there will continue to be access, that the equipment will continue to be there for kids to play on, and assuming that everybody continues to be copacetic, no changes. Am I
correct, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Edberg? I think that's an accurate statement, and the neighbors within this neighborhood can be assured that this proposed rezoning request and subsequent conditional use permit that comes before the council next month will assure the long-term land use of this property as a elementary school.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? If not, we'll see this back here for the second reading. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business, 9A. Mr. Juba, you want to take this one?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Tonight with us is Mark Casey and Liza Donnenbauer from David Drone and Associates, who's been retained by the city to carry out the recruitment process for the next city manager. They're here to give you an update on that process, and we also have a recommendation when that discussion has concluded to move forward with advertising for that position.
Thank you. Please. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Mark Casey and I are excited to be here with you tonight, and obviously we'll be moving forward here pretty soon to advertise for the city manager position. So we just want to review the process and seek approval and moving forward in that process. And over the last few weeks, we've been conducting some information gathering, so thanks to staff who submitted information about the community and the organization and the position itself. And then I also had the pleasure of spending the day here meeting with members of the council, your leadership staff, and Madam Mayor. And so with that information, you'll see in your packet there's a draft community and position profile. So it was a combination of all that information. That profile is important for three different reasons. One, we'll use that profile in advertising nationally, regionally, locally. Second, that information that we receive from staff and from each of you, Mark Casey and I will be using that in speaking with interested candidates. It helps put a more personal side to the community and the organization, so we get a better feel on whether the candidate is serious about the position, and also it just allows them to ask more on the more personal side about you all. Third, we will use that information in screening our candidates. So once the position closes, we'll advertise for 4 complete weeks. We'll use those conversations again to narrow down the candidates who we think would best fit your community or your organization, and that's through not only meeting minimum qualifications, but it's also we'll be looking for evidence that shows that they've have some of those desired attributes that you shared with me, as well as maybe had some experience with some of the projects or goals that you also shared with me. So we wanted to just make sure that that profile is an accurate portrayal of your community organization, the positions. We're just looking for your feedback here tonight. And I just wanted to bring your attention to my 2 favorite pages. I'm not sure if it's Mark's as well, but the page where it lists your desired attributes and those projects and goals, those did come straight out of your mouth. So those are really important to me. I just want to make sure that, that we accurately portrayed your thoughts there. So I guess brought my red pen, so I'm looking forward to making changes, and it will not hurt my feelings. I'm used to making changes. So, and I know staff had an opportunity to review this information as well, so they submitted those changes to me ahead of time, which has been reflected in the document that you see before you.
Thank you. All right, anybody? Councilmember Edberg, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 3 suggestions.
Yes.
So I actually did appreciate the responsibility at the bottom of the essential duties. I'm sorry, that's not it. It's on the manager priorities goals. Ensure that all parts of the community feels equally represented, promote improvement and development efforts in the north and south areas of the town. Great, I like that. Except but maybe one of the photographs are all from north of Goose Lake. You guys kind of stepped in a cow pie, and you got some stuff on your shoes. So I would offer that we have the city's largest park on the south side, that we have, I can't tell, one of the photographs might be Century College, but certainly that could be an opportunity to feature something more prominently. Anyway.
Classic Academies on the south side.
What's that?
Liberty Classical Academies on the south side. It's at St. Pius.
So I'll still repeat that we can get a really nice view of the lake from South Shore Boulevard. I would ask you to rebalance an equal presentation of the finer points of the community. I think a couple of other, I can speak to you privately if you wish. I've got a couple of word choices. So, for example, in the manager priorities, I don't know that we ought to actively provide city support for the school districts. I think we should offer constructive support, but it's not our job to be a booster. Because we also regulate, and they're maintaining that balance, I think. So I'd find a different wording for that one.
Sure.
Similarly, when it comes to the essential duties, that I'm fine with, so collaborating with department heads to develop budget requests. I actually expect the city manager to have some oversight, some accountability that resides there. So I don't know if collaborate seems, there's a finer distinction in there somewhere, I think.
And just to be clear, is that
Sure.
on the page
That's on
essential duties?
The essential duties, the 5th bullet down, 6th bullet down, 5th bullet down. And the other aspect is in there is that while we do speak to elsewhere about being knowledgeable of and of our Welcoming Communities initiative, we don't speak anywhere about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in this day, that seems to be, particularly when it comes to our personnel and having a staff that reflects the community that live here, seems like that might be missing somewhere.
Sure.
I'll stop there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Walsh.
Madam Mayor, I also circled the word support for the 5-year, $326 million school district thing, so I'm with you on that too. I think that was a strong word. We're in a different role. We're going to be approving things. Maybe we're done, but that's on the what do you call it? Desired manager attributes. So just a couple of word choices too. Sense of humor. I think sense of humor is fine in that first bullet point. I just don't know if I'd have it in the first bullet point. And maybe I'm being nitpicky, but I don't want, if somebody's reading this, to say that that's one of the top things you need. The first thing you need is a sense of humor.
You bet.
I love the rest of it. High integrity, professionalism. Those are the things that I was saying to you. So I really appreciate seeing that. So, but maybe not leading with sense of humor. I don't know if there's another spot for it. And then the second one, a high emotional quotient. I need to understand what that means. Do I have a high emotional quotient?
Yes.
No, that's why you have to ask about it.
I actually enjoyed the word choice. I did hear it specifically from one of you, so I thought, you know what,
That was me, and I like it up front. Doesn't have to be in the top one, but I'm like, otherwise it's sitting there by itself.
What do you think it means? What does it mean to you? Does that mean you're invested?
I have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Oh,
I agree with.
I mean, it's pretty.
That's a little more than that.
It's more than. It's just you've got to be able to roll with the flow. When someone says something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I get sense of humor. I'm talking about the second bullet.
He's talking about the highly emotional.
High emotional quotient.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that wasn't yours.
No, that was not mine. Sounds like Edberg to me. But 50-cent word.
I was impressed, Dan. I thought.
I was surprised. But
I got to pay him a quarter for every big word he uses. I don't know.
Does that mean invested?
Well, whatever it is, whoever is going to have to know that to handle us. I mean, they're going to have that piece.
Like mature? Like what are we trying to say?
You don't want to say that either. I mean, but
it means they got to be upbeat when they don't want to be upbeat. That's the way I read that with the rest of the sentence.
Okay.
So, Madam Mayor, if I may, I interpreted it to mean emotional intelligence, and so I just thought this was maybe a creative way to state that.
Okay.
So if you
well, you know best your audience. I mean, you're marketing this to a specific group. You know better than we what they if they'll get it or not. So, right? Yes.
Yeah. And then
Councilmember Jones.
All things being the same, drop sense of humor to the second bullet point. It goes better with that line anyways when you think about
creative, self-motivated, sense of humor. Yeah, that goes better in there. Yeah.
And then my last one is just appreciation for the active role in legislative level. I think that's an emerging thing for us, and I think that's something we should look for if we can. If it's not the number one thing, but if somebody comes in with some experience dealing with the legislature, achieving success at the legislature.
What would that
and there are
be?
people out there. There are people that apply that are going to have that skill set or that experience. So if we can keep our eye on that, I really like that one in there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, anything else? If not, we have a Councilmember Edberg.
Just one last one. So, as we describe our community, I completely agree that we have a quaint downtown, but we have business areas in other parts of the district. The County Road E corridor is a mixed residential and commercial corridor. We have industrial and business sectors elsewhere, Berkeley Road and 9th Street and other places. And I would welcome if you just reviewed the texts that it doesn't imply that the only business is across the street. I love across the street. It's just not the only place in our community where we have enterprise.
Wonderful.
Councilmember Jones.
So the last point that I would have, really not to you folks, but really to the council, is the salary range. I can't tell you what the salary is today, but I know when we hired Ellen, there was talk about that she would not receive the same level of pay as the outgoing city manager, and my question at that time was, is she doing that job? So why would we pay someone less? And I get the experience factor, but I'm assuming we're hiring that.
Starting.
So I would say starting would be my personal, and again, I'm not going to fall on, get passionate about this, but I'd say the starting range needs to be our current city manager's salary. That's my opinion, because I'm not going to hire anybody that I think is less value than our current city manager. That's just for discussion. I'm not sold or married to the number.
But you may have someone coming from a much smaller city, maybe with less responsibility. I don't know.
Let me, if I could, Madam Mayor, let me ask the experts. I mean, there's two different things going on here. There's the salary range is part of the advertisement and the attraction, right? I mean, so what's the point of a salary range? And then the second piece is, okay, we've decided you've applied because you've seen the numbers and you've applied. We like you. Now we negotiate, and then we're have to negotiate and look at their experience and fit it. It's going to fit in there. So
But don't you start it then with the lowest salary you would start with? I mean, that's what I
started with the market based on the expertise, you know,
that's a valid
and then
point,
it's to attract the right people, and then we negotiate, and then you know where you're at, Dan. I think, you know, we're not.
I just don't want to miss anybody because of $17,000 a year.
Well, that's a good question for them.
So that's
we'll bow to the experts. You know,
Madam Mayor, members of the council, definitely you're exactly right. The market, and that's what we'll be looking for, and that's what obviously the candidates will be looking for. But you, as a council, I think would want to reserve that right to be able to have some negotiation, depending on where they are. I mean, traditionally you don't bring somebody at the top, and traditionally a lot of times you don't bring them at the very bottom either. So you have to have that room to work within, and I think that will depend on a case-by-case basis. Most people are going to look at the top one to see how far you're willing to go. And in our opinion, I think that's a good number to be at the top. Not knowing you're going to bring them at that, but what they can aspire to.
Yeah.
And where that can go towards. So I think people going realistically, those that come in and think they're going to start at 163, they probably haven't been in the business long enough to realize how this really works in that sense.
Madam Mayor?
Councilman,
so
yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we've given anything other than the same salary increase that the rest of the employees received over the year. We didn't increase the salary because of experience, unless if we have, and maybe it just went over my head.
Oh, I think you're right.
For the current city manager, you mean?
Yeah. And you know, if you're hiring a new police officer, you know, they get years of service increases. We haven't done years of service increases for the city manager.
Traditionally not something you
along those lines, my opinion is that either the starting salary is too low or the ending salary is too high, as I believe the range is too large, and in my experience dealing with this.
Okay.
I guess just in my opinion, I would agree, and I think the starting salary may be a little on the low side. I would say your upper end, I think, is where the market needs to be for a city of your size and where your competition will be coming from.
I would then bring up the starting salary.
I don't want to miss anybody over like $10,000. You know what I mean? That's my concern.
Yeah.
Well, this is the application, not the negotiation.
I think you're going to get the people attracted. The candidates, I've always talked about the fit quotient and exactly what you'll be looking for. And they're going to be doing their due diligence. They're going to be watching council meetings. They're going to be listening to this discussion right now.
They're in it for being in.
The smart ones will be, and they're going to figure out where they think.
So, I mean, just on paper, I mean, you know, when you say, oh, where our taxes are low, lowest per capita, that could mean we're frugal. Mm-hmm. That could mean we're cheap. And I think there's two different words. Frugal is not cheap.
Right.
So I just don't want to get the wrong. I want to make sure if someone wants to.
If they're confident that we will attract, then I think we're.
Yep. Okay. It was just a question. I'm not sold on anything.
No, it's fine. It's good. Well, with that, I'm going to need a resolution approving the recruitment and advertisement of the position. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Sorry.
Okay.
I was just late.
You're late. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We look forward to continuing this process with you, and thanks for everything you've done already.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you.
Good process. All right, moving on to 9B, resolution authorizing execution of a memorandum of understanding with IAFF. Mr. Juba.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. IAFF is our union representative for our full-time firefighters and paramedics. And if this process looks similar to you, we went through a very similar process last year with Public Works in changing the responsibilities and adding some pay for the working foreman. This is very similar. Right now we have three shifts, 3 different crews that work for for the fire department, and among them right now they're all the same rank. What this memorandum of understanding does is introduce a new rank of captain, which will serve as that crew lead or shift lead on a daily basis, to be there, to be on the calls and take responsibility on a duty basis for everything that needs to be done during a shift. So we've negotiated an adjustment in pay. This does not add positions. It will elevate or promote three people within our current 12 full-time staff to serve in that capacity. The 2021 budget can absorb that additional cost, and we're planning for it in 2022 as well. This proposal that you see tonight has been accepted by the union, and staff recommends approval to create these 3 new captain positions.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Mr. Juba?
Sounds good. I'll move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 9C, resolution authorizing the mayor and city manager to execute a lease agreement with the Hockey Association. Mr. Juba.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members.
This is all your stuff tonight.
It's a convenient meeting for Ellen to not be here.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So tonight we are proposing a lease with the White Bear Lake Area Hockey Association, and their president, Chad Marquardt, is in attendance. And what that lease will do is give them the ability to go into the racquetball facility currently at the Sports Center and transition that to a dryland training facility. So right now there's 5 racquetball courts within that area, and what they will do is use those as 5 separate training facilities. And this is it's a great use for the space as it is today. They are going to be investing significant amount of money into it, and that space, as you recall, does need some significant investment, both on the tenant improvement side, which is the Hockey Association in this case, or proposed to be, and on the city's side, we have work to do on the roof, the HVAC, and the fire suppression in that area. So as it sits today with racquetball and volleyball, which has been a great use for that space, in the past, but we've come to a point now where a lot of investment is needed in that space, and this is one way to generate revenue to justify that investment. And continuing on with racquetball and volleyball would make those investments, the payback on them, almost insurmountable. So this way, we get to further our partnership with the Hockey Association. They'll be leasing that space. It will be theirs to use, and hopefully that will lead to more off-peak ice rental as well by the Hockey Association and by different people that are able to use that space to train. So we view it as a win-win, and we're looking to recommend approval tonight of that lease. And I know Chad's here and interested that gets done, because they have work to do, and they would like to get their shooting machine, which has been installed as we described at an earlier meeting, but they want to get in there and start using that. So
thank you.
That we recommend approval of the lease agreement.
Any questions? Councilmember Edberg.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm not opposed to the concept, but I don't see where the relative responsibilities for capital expenditures, renovation are detailed anywhere, either in the cover memo or in the agreement. And I could be wrong. I may have missed it. Is that detailed in another subsidiary document, or where do we have clarity around who's responsible for what?
The lease itself clarifies who's responsible for what. We do not draw the each improvement that's being made right now. Excuse me, Councilmember Edberg. We do not draw out each specific improvement that they're proposing at this time, but that also they are applying for a building permit right now, and we can recognize that perhaps in a separate memorandum as to their leasehold improvements, their responsibilities versus ours. However, the lease moving forward does clarify what's theirs and what's the city's.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. Well, This will be a good thing for all of us. Thank you. All right, moving on to 9D, which is resolution. Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong one. Resolution, here we go. Resolution approving acceptance of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Ms. Kinsvater.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, due to the COVID-19 pandemic that we've been experiencing these last couple of years, the federal government recognizes the challenges that the general public and cities and other local organizations have endured during this time. In 2020, they issued aid, which was the CARES funding that we used to support community events and organizations like Northeast Youth and Family Services that we heard from earlier. And we used it as much as we could internally to help support some of our expenditures. The challenges continue, and in 2021, Congress approved the American Rescue Plan Act in March, and which will allocate $2.7 million roughly to the city of White Bear Lake. In June 22nd, at your meeting, you approved the application process. So we applied for the funding, and in July we received our first allocation. So we receive half this year, and then we receive the second half of our funding next year. It's exactly a year out. We'll get that extra funding. We have 4 years to spend the money, so through December 31st, 2024. That time frame can be extended if we have a signed contract for a special project. If that's done before 2024, then we have until 2026 to expend the funds. The resolution tonight before you is just to accept that first allocation of funds. There isn't any recommendation at this point. We'll be working with the mayor and the city attorney and coming with recommendations for you on how we can use that money. We're continuing to do some research into possible options. We know that we have water, sewer, and surface water expenditures that qualify. We're doing some calculations. One of the categories is to replace public sector revenue, and that gives us a little more flexibility on options of what we can use the money. So we're continuing to investigate that so that when we bring these options to you, we know all of our available uses. So with that, I was just asked that you approve the resolution and to accept this money. We're just going through kind of the formality process so that we have this on our records, so when the auditors look at our records for our single audit and the U.S. Treasury comes back and looks at our reports, that we have you accepting the funds.
Thank you. Questions? It's pretty straightforward, I think. So anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to discussion. Ramsey Washington Suburban Cable Commission organizational update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This could very well have just been a communications item, but just to go through this real quickly, as a result of the recent franchise negotiations that we were updated on several times, there has been a reduction in revenue at SCC for their general operations. And where that sits right now is it's causing them to consider several cuts, primarily in staffing and programming for 2021, and then they're also trying to comprise their 2022 budget, which typically is delivered to the city councils of their partner cities within the JPA by August 1st, and obviously we have not seen that yet. So they will be considering another a budget proposal on Thursday night, so hopefully we will hear more in the not so distant future. And then they do have their board is hosting, along with some of their staff members, their board is hosting a brainstorming session and a discussion with member cities and again their board members and staff members tomorrow, which I will attend, and we did invite Councilmember Walsh to attend as well, although that invitation came in a little bit late, so I'm sorry about that.
I'll try to make it.
So really the discussion is ongoing, but there will be significant changes primarily to their staffing structure, and it does have an effect on cities. It does have an effect on our operation as far as our cable cast goes and the programming that we receive from them. But again, this very well could have been a communications item because we're still waiting on a lot of answers on what that's going to be.
Okay, thank you. Well, moving on to communications.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Just a reminder that this Saturday at 10 a.m. is the ribbon cutting and opening for the new Erdgeist gazebo. That project came together especially for its timing and this year with resources and contractors and difficulty getting a hold of materials for things came together very nicely, and they're gonna have that dedication this Saturday at 10 a.m. right in front of the gazebo, of course. And then we have a upcoming budget work session. Looks like a week from tonight, 6 p.m. here. And just lastly, a plug from me, the Caboose Committee. Similarly, when the gazebo committee was formed, there is a committee looking at the improvements needed and the rehab needed to the Caboose downtown, and that's coming along again with some of the shortages and difficulty trying to get contractors on board is taking a little bit longer than we'd hoped, but we're still hopeful to pull a budget together at this next meeting, which is a week from tomorrow. And that way we can start working on fundraising with the chamber and figure out, we're hopeful to get at least the structural and hopefully the roof stuff done going into, the roof work I should say, going into this winter so we don't have another winter with a dilapidated roof on that building. Okay. So
good. Well, things are moving along.
They are.
Ms. Kane, you have anything for us or?
Nothing to report.
After all.
Saving the water.
Lake is down.
Well, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.